Hey there, listeners. I wanted to say Merry Christmas to those who celebrate this festive season, but also Happy Holidays to you all around the world. And I also wish you a massive Happy New Year to every single one of you and your families and your loved ones. I trust it's going to be an awesome year ahead and it's going to be a great time. But you know what? It's a very special time of the year for us all right now. And it doesn't matter what country you're in, and it's really important. Because you see, we get the opportunity to have a new beginning. It's time for us all to turn the page and start again. We have a brand new calendar year starting, and that's why it's always important that we actually start to think about our goals for the calendar year ahead. Yes, I know that different nationalities and religions and so forth all have different New Years in their own religions, but around the world we have people who will start in this calendar year. The question is, how will you set the year up for success before you even start it? Let's discuss.
Welcome to Leadership is Changing. Each week, we and our guests provide information and insights through exploring leading change. This is taking your leadership to another level by finding the balance between executive excellence and personal well-being through stories that inspire real change. It's time to adapt in our fast-moving world when leadership is changing with your host, Denis Gianoutsos.
Well, welcome there, listeners. Great to have you here for another Ask Denis Freestyle episode. This is where I'm asked questions by my listeners, or I share my thoughts, insights, and experiences from working with many leaders around the globe. Trust that you've had a wonderful festive season, whatever that means for you, and you've actually taken time out to actually have a break, or if you're not, you might be about to start a break. But for many of you, it's a great time to have the break as we get ready to go into the brand new new year. So this is a period where you also should be thinking about what I had shared in the previous Ask Denis episode, which was around about taking time out to look at the 4 R's. The 4 R's being, just as a reminder, reflect, great time for you to reflect about the year that's just been, reset, refocus, and then relaunch. And if you haven't already heard that episode, please go ahead and listen to it. It's the previous episode of Ask Denis to this Ask Denis episode, and be worthwhile you checking it out. Well, the thing here that I want to do is to talk to you about what I do. This time of year is really important for all of us, but I tend to take this time of year to actually take time out to chill out and reset myself and so forth, but it's also a great time for Denis to think about the year that's just been. And for you would be the same thing too. How has your year been? What did you learn? What went well? What could you have done better? And of course, what will you do now differently going forward? And I always take the time out now to start thinking about my goals from a strategic perspective, but also setting those goals and doing some other things as well. And I actually have it finished in my head and on paper before I even start the year. From many years of experience and working with others, I've noticed a few things. One is that those that take time out now, and if you haven't already done so, you might want to do that, but also thinking about right now, start to think strategically. Start to think about setting goals, pulling plans together, and then executing on those new ones, and then setting yourself up for success. But you know what? Sometimes I hear too many excuses, too many people giving excuses about why they haven't done it. And you know what? Excuses isn't going to cut it. But you know what? At the end of the day, I've got to think about, well, who are those that do want to do something about it, and where are they going to go? And that's where we'll focus on. This isn't hard. It might seem hard and might seem a lot of work, but you know what? It isn't. But those who do put the time into it are the ones who really are going to set themselves up. So what I'm wanting to do here is actually share some of my thoughts about what you might want to do over the next few days. If you can't do it over the next couple of days, 3 days, 4 days, whatever it is, then doing it as soon as possible. I'm talking about next week if possible. I'm not talking about doing it in February, because you see the year's already moving on. And for some of you, you're not doing it till late January into February, then next minute it's Easter, next minute is this and that. and the year's just gone on and you've missed the boat. You can do the setting of goals anytime you like throughout the year, but this time of year in particular is really important because it's a fresh start. It's about where we can turn over the page, as I said before. And doing it, and maybe doing it a little bit later, in other words, in a week's time, is far better than not doing it at all. And so if you can do this, this will be great. Very smart. Pull it together and set yourself up beautifully for the year ahead. But because you do the goal setting and everything right now, it's not a given. It doesn't mean that you will succeed and do things, because there's other things to the recipe or the instructions if you want to bake that cake. You see, right now I've given you some recipe items, some ingredients to think about it, but also there's a recipe to put it all together. The instructions on how to cook that cake, the instructions on how to set up your year for success. Okay, so let's get into the different areas. One's going to be around thinking strategically. Now, what do I mean by that? Number one would be to reflect on the year that has passed by asking those 3 reflection questions I talked about. And if you missed them, here they are again. What went well? What could you have done differently? And what will you now do differently going forward? And try to reflect on all aspects of your life and all areas. And if there were goals, how did they go as well? Do some reflections around them. The other thing would be, what are your 3 to 5 big areas? And I'm talking about it strategically, right? What would you like to focus on? Notice that I didn't say 50 areas. What I talked about was 3 to 5. Try and keep it to 3 if you can, but 5 at the most. The key here is to keep it simple. The other thing you might want to think about strategically is about the resources and the support that you might need throughout the year to help you become successful and pull things and execute on everything nicely. So number 1 was thinking strategically. Number 2 is about setting goals, or set your goals. What you're wanting to do here is to set 3 to 5 major goals. Once again, notice I didn't say 50. Because you see, if there's too many, it means that you won't achieve anything. Why? Because you're spinning too many plates. There's an analogy out there, if you think about a stick, and people used to be able to spin plates on the top of the stick, very tall stick and so forth, that it's all good. But once you do a few of them, it's easy to follow and you can keep up with pace. And as some are starting to wobble off, you can get in there and give it a bit of a tension and it starts to spin again beautifully. But the more and more plates that you add, the more and more goals that you add, your focus will go elsewhere and you won't be able to see those that are starting to wobble, and some of them will start to fall off and the plates will start to break. So people sometimes ask me about setting goals. Do I need to have SMART goals? Well, look, SMART goals are important. Specific, measurable, achievable, what kind of results you might want, but also is it time bound? For me, SMART goals, yeah, they're okay, but I think at times people use that as something to hide behind. Oh, it's not a SMART goal. Or that they sort of procrastinate around the SMART goal piece. And I think that's just wrong. The important part here is to actually have focus and make sure that you actually do pull some goals together. Don't use it as an excuse. If you can do SMART goals, great. But if you can't, just make sure you've got the goals. But these goals are going to be, I'm going to say SMART, but they're actually going to be goals that you know that are relevant for you and that you can go ahead and go after them. Now, that doesn't mean, though, that you can just focus on 3 to 5 goals. I think that they actually should be more about being what we call bag goals. In other words, big, hairy, audacious goals. Now, they need to be big and scary goals, ones that are going to really make you scared. They're going to actually really pull you out of your comfort zone. Ones that are going to be you're thinking about it going, oh, am I going to be able to do it? Well, how am I going to do it? So you don't need to know how you're going to do it, because if you do know how to get the goal, then it's not a goal. It's just a task and you need to go off and do it. There's an awesome book out there today called Who, Not How. And it's by a guy called Dan Sullivan and another guy called Dr. Benjamin Hardy. And it's not about the how. It's about the who that's going to help you get things done that counts. And so the thing I would say to you around setting the goals, 3 to 5 major goals. getting very clear on what you want to achieve in those goals, and actually making sure that they're so big and scary that it really does sort of challenge you. But then also thinking about who you need to have around you to make it happen. So that's number 2, is setting the goals. Number 3 would be the action plans pulled together. The important thing here would be to put a plan around each of the goals. You might want to use something like a mind map or a spreadsheet or a notebook, whatever's right for you, right? And start to do that. But what I'm trying to say here is document the plan. Come up with some plan and document it. That plan may need to be revisited on a daily basis. But I would actually, right up front, right now, this time of year, pull a plan together and maybe put it away. Even the strategic and the goals and so forth. Come up with it, put it under your bed or somewhere in your house. Leave it for a day or two and come back to it again and revise it. Why? Because when you're in the moment, there's a whole lot of stuff that you're dumping down on paper. But when you step away from it, come back with it with different eyes, with fresh eyes, you would look at things differently. So that's an important thing for you to do. But the thing here would be to document the plan, revisit the plan daily, and remember that the goal is in cement, but the plan is in sand. And it can be changed if you wanted to. And so you may have a date on this plan, on the plan. Really strive for it. Go for it. Never give up too early. Right? Always push for it. And it's really important for you to go ahead and do that. So number 3, action plans being pulled together. Number 4, now that you've actually thought things through strategically, you've set some goals, and now you've got an action plan. The important thing then is the execution of that plan. It doesn't matter how good your strategy, your goals, or your plan are. If you don't get off your butt and do something about it, then it's going to mean nothing. Or it's going to be a beautiful plan, and it's going to be there on paper. But we need to be disciplined and focused, and most importantly, consistent. The consistency will help you gain massive momentum. And that's what's going to be really important here for you in relation to the execution of the plan. Listeners, remember to measure your progress as well and celebrate the small wins as well. Whatever you're wanting to do in this coming year, I'm going to say to you, you better prepare and be more deliberate about what you're doing. Too many don't. And too many want it, but aren't willing to put the work in. They finish the year and going, well, what happened? And why didn't I get there? Well, I think what you need to do, listeners, is to finish the year in your head and on paper before you even start it. For some people, they try and do this all by themselves. I've tried to do this all by myself. And I'm not talking about the setting the goals and so forth, but it's actually bouncing it off someone else or getting someone else to hold me accountable and challenge me and support me. And when I haven't had people around me like that, the goals haven't gone too well. They've been okay-ish, mediocre. But when I do have somebody around me, it's amazing what I can go and do. It's amazing what I am starting to tick off before we even starting the year because things are already happening. Now, for some of you, you may have already done that. For some of you, you haven't even thought about it. For the majority of you, you haven't even thought about goals and what are you wanting to achieve in the year. You've got to the end of the year and you've gone, oh, I'm so tired. And a lot of you are because you've been under pressure and stress and so much change happening. But you know what? You've got the year ahead of you now. You've got this chance to turn the page over and start a fresh year. This is where you can change things. For some of us, we have already started. The goals are already set. The plans are already in place. In fact, for some of us, we have already made the changes or started to kick off some of the initiatives. I have. And I'm already feeling really cool about it because I know what we're going to be doing and where we're going. Now, do I know everything about how it's going to happen? No. And do I know if it's all going to happen? No. And that's the scary part. But you know what? It's an exciting part too. This is where the positivity and the ability to go out and then get this thing done, it's going to be awesome. Get away from negativity. Get away from negative people. Stay focused on where you're wanting to go. Because you know what? I know that you can do this. I believe in you. And I know that you can go ahead and achieve whatever you're wanting to achieve. But you can't do it by yourself. Some of you think you can. Some of you are capable, but you still need to go and have that person. If high-performing, very, very successful people are getting somebody beside them, then why aren't you? And so my call to action here for you today is to think about what you're wanting to do strategically, setting the goals, pulling a plan together and executing it. And then the fifth piece would be to reach out to me and start talking to me about what you're wanting to do. But then how can we help you be successful in this year? Hey, I want to say to you, thank you so much for listening to the episodes and this podcast throughout the year. It's been a real pleasure bringing these episodes to you. If there's anything I can do to help you, please feel free to reach out to me. Send me a message or an email on dennis@leadingchangepartners.com or a private DM, direct message through social media. And thank you to those who have. And it's been a real pleasure talking to you, talking about where you're wanting to go, but also how I can actually help support you to do that. Now, team, this is really important. Take this seriously now about where you're wanting to go. Once again, have a massive holiday break, have a massive new year, and I look forward to your journey and hearing about what you're doing and achieving in the new year. Once again, Happy New Year. Thanks for joining us. Until next time, bye for now.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Leadership is Changing with your host, Denis Gianoutsos. Each week, we and our guests provide information and insights through exploring leading change, inspiring executives and leaders to adapt and lead a bigger game in a fast-moving world.